On behalf of the entire West Liberty University community, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Todd Clossin. West Liberty University is very pleased to offer the following proclamation. Whereas Todd F. Clossin supports the vision for West Liberty University as a model of educational excellence, and whereas Mr. Clossin is recognized business leader as President and Chief Executive Officer of WestBanco Inc. and its bank affiliate, WestBanco Bank Inc., and whereas Mr. Clossin and WestBanco have taken a strong interest in West Liberty University's future through consistent and significant support, and whereas Mr. Clossin and WestBanco are significant employers of many West Liberty University graduates, and whereas Mr. Clossin has distinguished himself as a community and civic leader serving on the board of the West Virginia Bankers Association and the Ohio Foundation of Independent Colleges, and therefore be it resolved that West Liberty University Board of Governors hereby confers upon Todd F. Clossin the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters with all the rights, privileges pertaining thereto on this 15th day of December, 2018. That's what it is. Hang on before you go back. You can't go back until it's official. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the state of West Virginia and the West Liberty University Board of Governors, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters with all the rights, honors, and privileges pertaining thereto. Now, on behalf of the students, faculty, and staff of alumni at West Liberty University, I am extremely pleased to welcome back to the podium Dr. Clossin.
Well, thank you, and good morning. President Greiner, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, graduates, family, and friends, I'm honored to be with you here today. As I considered topics for today's speech, I felt that one of the most significant takeaways from my comments would be the importance of discussing ethics and their impact on someone's life and career. You see, my nickname for the past 20 years has been the Boy Scout. I received this nickname not because I ever achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. I wish I had. I never got beyond second class. I received this nickname because I've always tried to do what was appropriate in any given situation based upon a core set of personal values and a belief system that was ingrained in me at a very early age. I don't think my beliefs or values are anything unique, but I do think that in today's fast-paced world, ethics don't get enough discussion. The line between what is right and what is wrong is often blurred, and at times outcomes seem to take precedence over how you actually achieve those outcomes. You see, I believe when you have a solid set of values and ethics you establish early in life that guide your decision-making and actions, life's tough decisions aren't that tough. They're actually pretty easy. We can all cite many powerful and successful people who have lost their way and stumbled professionally because they made bad decisions in the heat of a moment, or the temptations of a given situation were just too high to ignore. I call this situational ethics. Let me give you an example I use with my kids who are now all in their 20s. If someone leaves a $1 bill on a table and walks away and you see that, what do? You walk over and pick up that dollar bill and hand it back to that person, or do you stick it in your pocket and hope nobody notices? I think most everyone here would return that dollar bill. I'm pretty confident of that. But what if it was $1,000? What if it was $1 million? Would your decision still be the same? That's what I mean by situational ethics. If you have a solid set of core values and ethics, that dollar amount of the money left on the table is simply irrelevant and the decision is easy. You return the money because it's the right thing to do, based upon your values and your belief system. You don't have to think about it. The situation simply doesn't matter. Now put situational ethics into career terms. You have the opportunity to sell that startup you created while a student here at West Liberty in your dorm room. You can sell it to a big company and retire at 25 years of age. You suspect that there are some inappropriate revenue overstatements because of the aggressive accounting your chief financial officer has been using. You know that if you bring the issue to light, the sale might fall through, or it might bring a dramatically lower sale price. You're really looking forward to taking it easy. You've worked hard on this business. You want to retire and spend some time on the beach. The stakes are high. What do? I've known quite a few people who've made the wrong decision over the past 30 years when being exposed to a situation like that. Many promising careers have been derailed because a personal expense report was padded by $50. An inappropriate website was visited while at work, or someone used their position to obtain financial gifts from a supplier. Here's a simple rule to live by. Make every professional decision as if decision would be written on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper. And if you don't like what will be written on the front page of the newspaper, then stop and make a different decision. It's also not a bad way to run your life personally either. If you conduct yourself in this manner, you'll still face business challenges, but I can promise you that you will sleep well, you'll feel good about yourself, you'll be an example for your friends and your family and your coworkers. When you face those big career decisions, and you will, look yourself in the mirror and say you already made the decision to do the right thing when you were a kid. And don't be tempted by the situation. Situational ethics are a slippery slope. Remember the saying, tough times don't create character, they reveal it. I believe that. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about what I believe is one of the greatest determinants of career success beyond just having good ethics and values. That is the importance of having and displaying something called emotional intelligence and continuing to develop that intelligence over the course of your career. There are many great books out there on the topics of emotional intelligence, but the one I use at the bank, and it's required reading for every single one of my senior executives, is called The Leadership Challenge by James Clossin and Barry Posner. There are also several books and papers out there written by Richard Boyatzis, Daniel Goldman, Annie McKee, and a number of other people that are also excellent. I can talk for hours on this topic, and my employees at the bank will tell you that I frequently do. I find a way to work it into about every conversation I have in front of a group of employees, because it is so important to the trajectory of someone's career, and it is so important to the long-term continued success of my company. Many of you have also studied emotional intelligence, or EQ as it's frequently called, while a student here at West Liberty. So why is it so important? Why am I spending time this morning before you head off for the rest of your careers to talk about this? I believe that having an accurate view of yourself and how others perceive you requires something called empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see your actions through their eyes. Some people develop this skill early in life. Some develop it later in life, and some never seem to be able to develop it at all. When you can see yourself from another person's perspective, you have a better chance of understanding how they're going to react to you and what motivates them. Understanding this reduces unproductive conflict, improves relationships, allows you to negotiate better, and also allows you to lead teams more effectively. I know we all know that not everyone is the same, and we all have different personalities. But have you ever worked with that person or for that person who you knew not to talk to until they'd had that second cup of coffee in the morning? You know, the person that comes in and just says, this is the way that I am and everybody has to deal with me? These people, not always, but often, rely on the power of their position or the force of their personality to get things done. Those people don't do well in most organizations over the long haul because they fail to get the most out of those around them. They may be well-intentioned, but they don't realize the impact they are having because they can't see the difference between their impact and their intent on the individual. And I screen for emotional intelligence at West Banco. You don't rise above a certain level, and you don't get to manage large groups of people unless you have a high degree of emotional intelligence. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a bright up-and-coming employee working for you someday who makes a pretty big mistake. Not a career-ending mistake, but nonetheless still a pretty big mistake. So you're the manager of that employee. How do you react? Do you call out that employee in a staff meeting, embarrass them in front of others, tell them they made a bad decision, and if they ever do it again, they're going to be demoted? Well, I think the emotionally intelligent manager would bring that person into their office, tell them privately that they made a bad decision, explain why it was a bad decision, explain the decision's impact on the company. They would then tell that employee that they are a bright and talented person who has an amazing career in front of them, and they should take time to reflect and learn from the mistake that they made. So in that first response I gave you, that employee, you probably destroyed that employee for the day, their productivity for the week, and they might even go work for that company down the street that's your competitor. In the second response, you made your point. You then built the employee back up, and you re-recruited that talented employee back to your organization. EQ is understanding the impact your comments have on employees and adjusting your comments to meet that employee's specific needs at that specific point in time. It's difficult to do if you don't have empathy, because you won't be able to see the impact of your comments through the eyes of your employees. So let's talk about styles a bit. I like to associate certain styles with colors, personality styles with colors, because it just makes it a little bit easier for me. I learned this at a seminar a number of years ago, and it just kind of stuck. I'm a linear thinker. I like to put everything on lists. My mom was that way. I check things off one at a time. I prefer to structure my day in a very sequential order, and I imagine a number of you out there are the same. In my eyes, these are kind of a green color personality style. You might imagine there are many green personalities in the financial services business. So I'm going to tell you about two employees I had who had very different styles. Neither of them worked at West Banco. One was a woman who ran my branch network. It was a really big job. She had what I would refer to as a red personality style, which means she was much more extroverted and much more relational than I was. And let me stop for a second and tell you that there's no right or wrong personality style or color. They're just different ones. Well, this individual would come into my office at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning for my weekly meeting with them, and I knew we were going to spend the first 10 to 15 minutes talking about what I did over the weekend, what movies I saw, what restaurants I went to, what were my kids doing, and then I was going to hear the same with her. And we would have that conversation before we got into the business topic at hand. I knew it was going to take 10 to 15 minutes. Well, my other employee ran the commercial lending division for the bank, and he was a green personality style like me. So he'd come into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. He had already been to the gym for an hour. He had 20 things to do on his list by noon, and I was number 8, and all he wanted to do was finish his meeting with me so he could check it off and move on to number 9, and there was no chit-chat with him, and he preferred it that way. Well, now with my personality style being very similar to his, it was a pretty easy meeting because we shared the same style. With the individual I mentioned earlier, though, my branch head, I had to stop and think before the meeting began. I had to take a breath. I had to relax because I knew we were going to spend the first 10 to 15 minutes talking about what we did over the weekend. So why did I do that? I did it because that was the best way to have a productive meeting with her. If I cut her short and I said, I don't have time for chit-chat, she would have been thrown off just a bit by my abrupt style, and it would have impacted our having an optimal meeting. Not a good result for her, and also not a good result for me as her manager. So for that hour and 15 minutes, I matched my style to hers to have a productive meeting. So now let's talk about the personality style of yellow. The yellow style to me is much more of a spatial personality type. My wife happens to be a yellow personality style. These people are creative and innovative and free-thinking. Most people also seem to marry somebody the style other than the one that they happen to have as well. If I call my wife and I ask her where she wants to go to dinner, she'll say, you know what I have a taste for? You wouldn't believe what the dog did today. Your dad called, he wants to know if you're going to come up this weekend. I'm going to the store to pick things up. Do you need anything? How about Applebee's? Now, I know I'm eventually going to get an answer to my question. I just have to wait for it. Because again, I'm a sequential thinker. She's a spatial thinker. I have to realize that style difference and wait for my answer. Now, she's watching this via TV right now because she couldn't be here, so I hope she's smiling. And remember, I said there's no right or wrong personality style. There's just different ones. So if I use a little bit of empathy and try to see myself through her eyes are probably telling me it's time to stop talking about her and move on to the rest of my speech, so I will. What's interesting is if you put these different personality styles in a work setting and then add stress to it, something interesting happens. In times of stress, we all tend to revert back to our primary or our dominant personality style. You need to be careful about that as you go out into this world and create your careers. So let's say you're a green personality style and you pull a team together for a meeting. You've got 30 minutes to make an important deadline. You start the meeting with your green style itinerary and agenda, and all of a sudden some red personality style wants to first talk about who's going to win the football game on Saturday night. Or somebody in the yellow personality style, more spatial, wants to talk about why do we need to make a decision in 30 minutes in the first place. You're running the meeting, you're getting frustrated because you're trying to go through things in a sequential order and your planned agenda is getting thrown off. This is called style conflict, and you see it in companies all the time. And we often see it even in our own homes. So you have to be aware of your own personality style and your own style tendencies to run an effective meeting, or that meeting can quickly turn into chaos with hurt feelings all around, not necessarily a productive result. Let me also tell you that having all personality styles on a team is a real strength. And striving for diversity of style, of thought, is critical to making optimal organizational decisions. You see, it's the yellow style, that creative person, who's going to see the connection between divergent ideas that can take your business or your project to the next level. It's the red personality style who's going to stop in the middle of the meeting and say, well, wait a minute, what are our employees going to think about this decision? What are our customers going to think about this decision? And it's the green personality style that's most likely going to make sure that the meeting stays on time and that you stay on budget. Understanding your style and knowing the styles of those around you requires, you guessed it, emotional intelligence. Those people who can bring that perspective to their careers have a better probability of successfully leading teams than those who purely rely on just their technical ability or expertise. I want to tell you a very brief story about a couple I knew who had different personality styles and believed that they could change each other into their own style of thinking. Let's call them Marcia and Jim. Marcia was a green style and therefore liked having planned itineraries for vacations. Jim was a yellow personality style and just liked to go with the wind and not have a plan. What's the fun of a vacation if there's not any spontaneity to it, was Jim's view. Well, Jim convinced Marcia to take a vacation without having any specific plans and without a daily itinerary. It was a 2-week vacation, and when it started, Jim said, we're just going to get in the van and go west. Jim and Marcia drove west each day, stopping when they felt like it, taking side trips off the highway to visit sites at a moment's notice. They had no idea where they were going to stay each evening until they got there. They would just figure it out. Marcia enjoyed the vacation, and Jim thought he had finally gotten her to change her personality style, or her ways, as he referred to it. Well, when they arrived home after 2 weeks, they pulled into the driveway. Jim went to the back of the van to start unloading the van, and he noticed that Marcia had walked directly from the van to the front door of the house. As a matter of fact, he realized that she had pulled the key to the house out of her purse as they were in the van before they even got to the driveway. Well, she opened the front door of the house, walked straight upstairs to her office, opened her day planner, and guess what she did? She checked off a box that said 2 weeks of unplanned time. She had been waiting 2 weeks to check that box. The moral of the story is when you find that lifelong significant other, don't try to change that person's style because it isn't going to work. That's why I'm perfectly okay hardly ever knowing where I'm going to have dinner, even though I want to plan it very, very badly. To wrap up my comments today, I have one last homework assignment for all of you graduating. Create your own personal mission statement to guide you. Keep your mission statement to no more than 6 words so that you can remember it easily. Mine is, enjoying the journey is the goal. I can't tell you how many times I think about that personal mission statement every month, and I have so for years. My family can tell you that I test it at times, but I always tend to come back to it. So you all have a blank canvas in front of you called life. You will each create something meaningful and beautiful with that canvas, I'm sure. But when you face life's inevitable setbacks, challenges, fears, insecurities, phobias, whatever they may be, don't let them define you. Embrace them. Use them as your source of strength to take you higher, farther, and faster than you ever thought possible. Because when you achieve that ultimate success in life that I know you will, you'll reach it with a degree of humility and grace and perspective that only come with living life's experiences. Congratulations on your graduation today. You have a first-rate education that nobody can ever take away from you. Be a lifelong learner and be curious about the world around you. Read as much as you can about topics that interest you, and this is important. Spend considerable time analyzing, debating, thinking about, pondering ideas that are different from your own. Critical thought is the ability to think more deeply about the topics at hand, and you've created that and developed that more fully during your time here at West Liberty. It's part of your curriculum. Having an idea, articulating that idea, and then gaining advocacy for that idea are hallmarks of our democracy. Enjoy your journey, both professionally and personally. Have a strong core belief system and value system that will carry you through life, and don't be swayed into thinking that ethics are situational, because they are not. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.